What up, my ninjas? It's Strident here, and I'm here with the cold. But listen, so I'm a little bit frustrated because of a topic that I keep seeing pop up on YouTube, and it popped up several times in school. It pops up even at work every now and then when we have our group meetings with the people in the house. It's about racism in comics, racism in films, racism in comic book movies, racism in just comics in general. It seems like most of the comics don't do it as bad as the movies do. I mean, there are comics that exist that have, pretty racist ideas and racist treatment of characters, but the movies take it a step further. The public at large seems to forget that when you watch a movie, it's not just pure entertainment alone. You know what I mean? Yes, we pay to watch it and to escape, but many people want realism, but they don't want to, they don't really realize what realism would entail. You know what I mean? If it's realism, then a show like Friends or, movies with an entirely white everything couldn't exist, or an entirely, unless it takes place in Asia or in, freaking Norway or some shit. You got to be very specific with how you can cast a film and, completely cut out certain nationalities, Like Avatar was an example of what you can't do, especially when the source material is telling you that this story is about China. It's a mythical China, but it's China. The martial arts are Chinese, the characters are wearing Chinese clothes, everything is Chinese, therefore you should have cast Chinese actors, not Indian actors, definitely not white actors, unless they kind of look Asian, and unless it was a question of can they perform what you needed them to perform versus the Asian counterpart that might be able to do one of these things and maybe not. Kind of like what they did, or what they say they were doing with David Carradine versus Bruce Lee in Kung Fu. Because originally, Kung Fu was Bruce Lee's thing, and they hired David Carradine to do his thing instead of the guy who brought that thing to the production companies. And this is truth. It's a fact. You can read about this. Anyway, I'm going to put a link to a video on YouTube about racism in Hollywood. And they're talking about X-Men First Class. And they're pointing out the very thing that me and my brother from another mother, Agent O, pointed out in our video. We pointed out how the scene where they killed Darwin and everything leading up to that was fucked up and it was racist, because you didn't need to, number one, full frame focus on the black man when Shaw mentions the words enslave, or the word enslave. And then you didn't need to go that far as to even kill him. They killed a character whose powers are to, wait, let me get this perfectly correct. He has the power of reactive adaptation. Now, in English, what this means is a constant state of evolution. Depending on what you throw at him, his body will react on its own to make him able to withstand, survive, get around whatever the obstacle is. Now, yes, this exists. This is a character in print. You can go and you can read about him. You can find several Marvel comics with this dude in there. He probably has a Wikipedia page if you don't believe what I'm saying. Anyway, we all complained when we saw this because we're like, how the fuck do you kill off the one character there whose power just inadvertently makes him immortal? You can't kill him. They've shown you this in several comics. He survived fighting the Hulk. He survived being blown up and turned straight to energy so that he could lay dormant in the third Summers brother, Vulcan. He even touched Hela, the god the goddess of the underworld in Norse mythology, and became a god just so he could withstand her touch of death. What part of how perfect this power is do these writers and these Hollywood fucks not understand? Okay, fine. So, as you can see, I'm passionate about this because it's like saying that I don't know, that a cotton ball could destroy a piece of steel. You know what I'm saying? It just doesn't make sense. It's like saying that you could piss on a cloud and it'd make it'd blow up the world or something. It's just asinine. It doesn't make sense. And it's like, it's almost as if these motherfuckers just can't read. But their trade involves writing and reading. You know, like when you make a movie about something that exists that someone else created, I don't care what the rights, I don't care how you manage all that shit, you are regurgitating information. And the information exists. Why is it that there are kids? My son can read comic books. He's 9 years old and he can tell me what they do, but these adults read it and say, oh, guess what? Shinobi Shaw, or I'm sorry, Sebastian Shaw is gonna put a little energy cracker in the black man's mouth and blow him to smithereens. What the fuck? Like, how did you even get to that point? So anyway, I was mad about that. The anger I'm feeling right now, or the frustration, is from the fact that there are so many people who refuse to see things. And I know you can't get everybody to see things the way you do. But like, forget this movie, but let's think of the billions of other movies where the black guy is the first one to die. And people are always like, I don't get it. It's not racist. Of course it's not until it happens to you. You don't deal with racism, so you don't notice when it's being blatantly served to your fucking mouth, you know, to your eyes or whatever. It's pretty much being force-fed to you. You don't notice it, you know? There's a saying, the devil's greatest trick was convincing mankind that he did not exist. If so many people continue with this attitude in life, I mean, forget the fact that we're talking about fantasy, but if people continue with this attitude in life, then everybody of another race is fucked unless we go back to where our, you know, we go back to a place where people look more like us. You feel what I'm saying? Like, here in America, it's a melting pot. But as it being a melting pot, you have to take the good and the bad, and you have to recognize both. You can't just say everything is all, you know, fucking lollipops and roses because you don't see the bad side. And then, you know, on the other hand, you can't say it's all evil. You know, and I'm not saying it's all evil, you know, but I'm saying that both have to be acknowledged. So, as usual, I know that, you know, the internet gives people courage. And when I'm talking courage, little people get big, really big. And they say things that they couldn't say in real life. If we were sitting in a room full of people of all kinds of races, the one white person wouldn't say, racism doesn't exist. Are you kidding me? You want to see racism? Because I guarantee you they get an abject lesson on racism right there. Because we wouldn't have the conversation if it didn't exist. You know what I mean? In the comments, you always see weird things and you always see funny things. You always hear people say stupid and ignorant stuff. But some of these things were like extra ignorant and stupid that I just felt the need to bring this stuff out and let the world know. I don't know if the world is even really paying attention, but let the few people who listen to what I have to say, I want to run this stuff by you. So whether or not you feel that Darwin's murder in the movie was, you know, racist or not, and you think that because, you know, contrary to the formula, he received an on-screen death, which means that he is dead. Traditionally, if a character dies off-screen, then writers can bring him back because you didn't see his death. You only learned of his death. But contrary to that formula and that belief and that way of working, some people believe he's going to come back because they did it in the comics. I'm like, but in the comics, the threats were bigger. Anyway, I explained in one comment that, you know, this is kind of messed up, you know. Not only do we need to be more true to the source material, but we need to have more heroes that are headliners like their, you know, the older white heroes that came out before, you know, we came to a mid-ground on racism in our different media. So if you understand what I'm saying is in the 1940s, black men weren't allowed to be writing these, you know, superhero comics, so the main character couldn't be a black man. You get that? But now it's different. You have black writers, you have black artists, you have companies that have a mixed staff. So you could have a black main character, which is why we have black heroes, you know? Now, the key thing I'm saying here is the black heroes exist, but they're not on par with the white counterpart. For instance, Mr. Terrific is, I think, the third smartest person in the DC universe, but he's not on par with Batman. Depending on the writer, it's worse or it's better, but he's still not on par with Batman. we've seen Batman. I don't even remember where Batman actually falls on this, but they go so far as to tell you he's not the smartest, but he's one of them. You know, he's the third smartest guy. When they redid the whole DC universe, all the criticism about his book where he's headlining, it's his own book. People are like, this book isn't that cool. It feels like all they did was make him a black Bruce Wayne. So what I'm saying is that they need to not do that. They need to give him his own personality so that his book can flourish past the fact that he's black and has these, you know, this insane intelligence. You get what I'm saying? Or like Hardware. Hardware for a long time was the angry black man stereotype. And people didn't dig it like they thought that they would. And the book was written by black people and illustrated by black people. It has to go past the race thing so that he can get to fight shit out in space and you know, do all the things that Superman and Batman and other Justice League members have done, you know? DC themselves did a better job with Steel. Even though in the beginning he was fighting gangs and inner city problems, he was like super street level with like Iron Man level powers, which didn't make sense. Because, I mean, how could he not win fighting gangs that use, you know, AKs and Glocks? And he's got this hydraulic exoskeletal suit of armor with magnetics and all these crazy, you know, different gadgets built in. Like, of course he would win. It's not a challenge, you know? He needs to be fighting bigger stuff, and as time went on, that's what they did. Now, I specified that there's a big difference between just a simple black character versus a headlining mainstream black character. I asked someone someone said that they didn't feel that this was racism. And once again, I'm saying I know I can't change people's perspective. It just angers me that the perspective exists. But this is a fact, right? I say we can all name several mainstream white or Asian superheroes. Probably more white. I won't say Asian. But you can't name 10 mainstream black superheroes. So the individual goes on to just randomly name heroes. He names, among those heroes, he did name Blade, Storm, and Black Panther. He ended his list with a character called the Urban Avenger, whom, let's face it, a very select few people might even know who he is. I put in his name in Google, and nothing came up. So I'm like, dude, come correct or don't come at all. When I said headlining mainstream heroes, I'm talking about heroes that their book, they are the main character and the book really sells. He mentioned War Machine. He mentioned Cloak from Cloak and Dagger. Cloak can't have a book on his own because it's Cloak and Dagger. So that doesn't count. And they've never been in the forefront. You know, they're always part of an ensemble cast, except for that miniseries they had way back sometime. I think it was in the early 90s or mid 90s. And, you know, it's clearly someone talking to someone with limited knowledge of comics talking to someone who knows their comics. And, you know, I'm trying to say, you know, I'm basing when I say mainstream or headlining, I'm talking about the heroes that bring in money. You know, that really bring in money. Every time they make a black superhero book, it gets canceled, except for like a handful. When they did the Wrecking Crew for Marvel, where they had Rhodes, the White Panther, what was his name? The Black Captain America, that's Patriot's grandfather or whatever, and there was someone else, I think War Machine. Oh, Rhodes, I already said him. Anyway, they had that bunch of them together, and the book failed. The book, like, it lasted for a little while, but the sales were not amazing. Most people were just like, this is kind of lame. It was kind of like a last-ditch effort. Milestone, come on now. Milestone was successful in its beginnings, and then it just got stagnant as it went along. And that was a whole entire universe created to be for us, by us, quote unquote, you know? Now, I'm not saying that I want another for us, by us movement where it's all black people all the time, because that's not the world that we live in. What I'm saying is equal attention needs to be given to the black characters as they do with the white characters, so that we can have headlining black characters that are equally as compelling and marketable as Batman or Superman or Captain America or, you know, Spider-Man. Don't make it an afterthought, you know? You had on DeviantArt, Ryan Otley, the artist for Invincible, he posted, it was like around April, or it was a little after April Fool's. He posted a picture of a black Invincible. And you wouldn't believe the amount of racist comments. And then people would turn around and defend that they're not racist. But they would sit there and say stuff like, this better be an April Fool's joke. Or, what do they say? They better follow this up with a dance number like the one in Thriller. Or, the list could go on and on and on and on about the stupid stuff. Like, I gave you the lightweight ones. There were worse ones. And I was just like, I cannot fucking believe that in this day and age, someone would have the fucking gall to put that shit up there. But they do, because they're hiding behind their fucking keyboard, and it's fine. But if we were in the same room, this type of conversation would go very differently, because you can't say that kind of stuff in your right mind out in the open. It's like people's morals are degrading because they know they can say shit behind closed doors and be safe when they say it, even though it's shit that's 100% offensive, 100% unacceptable. They're trying to do that there, and then they turn around and try to defend in the same breath, defend themselves. I'm not racist. No, I'm not racist. I just say racist things, pretty much. The fuck, you know what I mean? So this goes on for a couple comments, you know. You have to accept you're the one that's racist because you won't say that you're wrong, and because my characters count. And I'm like, listen, I make comics. This is what I do. And I know comics, you know. It's been more than an obsession. It's not even a hobby. It was an obsession for a long time, and now it's a job. So I know what it is I'm trying to fix when I make my own comics. You just read whatever somebody spoon feeds you. And I know those people make up a portion of the fan base for anything. And, you know, I'm glad they exist, because somebody has to read things and somebody has to be in there to fill in that mid-ground between the hardcore fans and the casual fans, you know? But it just doesn't make sense that people don't understand the difference between a fact. Fact is, there are character popularity polls. They usually have these whenever they're going to do, at least Marvel and DC used to do this all the time when they were going to do a crossover, especially when it was coming time to do Marvel versus DC. They also have book sales. You can find the book sales for any given comic. I think a month after they come out, you can find out, or a couple months, maybe it's like 2 or 3 months after they were released. They'll tell you, like, how did this book sell? It'll say it on Marvel.com. It'll say it on Comic Vine. It'll say it on Comic Related. There's a ton of websites that list how well or how poorly a comic does. These are facts. Yes, it might be a small number of people, and it's not really an accurate 100%. It's not 100% of the reader, the reading. It's not 100% of the readership. It's just a portion that was actually, you know, tested or counted or whatever. But, you know, long story short, the sales figures, they're facts. When a movie comes out, how well does it do? Iron Man 2 sucked. It was good to see War Machine in the movie, but it's not like he was the main character. He still was the best friend of Iron Man. He was still the second-rate Iron Man, you know? And people want to see it how they want to see it. And I guess forever you will. You know, that's just how it is. But when it comes to this racism thing, I'm not having this conversation with those people. I don't want to, you know? More people need to get their shit straight and then have something to contribute to the conversation. This is one of those conversations where the reason why we bring it up is because we want to fix it and we want to know what things could be done to fix it. I don't want to fight with you over who your favorite black hero is. I don't care. You have a favorite black hero. Good. But when I say that they're not on equal footing with the other heroes, it's factual because comics are in print. The movies are in print. The movies are all over the place. You know, we can go online and look up any movie. You got Netflix. You can go to your video store if you still got them in your neighborhood. There's so many ways for you to figure out what I'm saying, you know? Pick up any superhero film with a black character in it, and it's either comedy or he's the supporting character. And I'm not talking about those hood movies that they don't count because they're straight to DVD and they only play them on BET or like Stars, Black Stars or some shit like that. And I'm talking about the whole world. You know, when I say headlining, any country you go to, if you brandish the Superman shield, they don't even know how to say his name, or they don't even need to, but they know who that character is. Same thing with the bat symbol. I don't know about Spider-Man and Cap so much because Cap symbol is synonymous also with our military and some others. But I know that the S shield and the bat insignia, it doesn't matter which one, they're all like worldwide iconic symbols that everyone knows. It's like Michael Jackson. Regardless of his race or his lack of race or his whatever he did to himself, everyone knows who he is. That's headlining status, you know? If you put Superman in a book, there's a lot of people out there who dislike him because all of a sudden Batman is only the coolest hero. There's no room for others here in the US, but outside of the US, Superman is a cultural icon. So no one cares about only the Batman fans. You can be simple and only like Batman because he's relatable, quote unquote, because you have severe severe trauma from, you know, these situations, and you can relate to getting your parents shot, you know. I mean, I'm sure there's people who had this stuff happen, but it's not everybody, so it's not really relatable as people say. But anyway, you know, I'm moving away from my point. The point of the matter is icon status, headlining status. We want a character, a black character that you put him in a comic and he can move a couple, you know, 50 million books in the first week or in the first month. You know what I mean? I'm not talking about just making a black character. I've done it. I've got several black characters in my book, and my book doesn't sell millions. I'm a small fish in a big, big, big pond. So I'm talking about making heroes of color equally as marketable and equally as compelling as the counterparts. I want to hear from you guys what you guys think on this subject. And, you know, do you think that it's okay for people to, you know, pretend that they don't see this? Or it's not a big problem that our heroes, the whole concept of superheroes is lopsided? You know, black heroes are always in the street, always dealing with street level crime, and they rarely get to go up to Justice League level, you know? Also, the same person I had this back and forth, it was two people. The back and forth we had someone named the Green Lantern, but the Green Lantern that they mentioned was John Stewart. So clearly this person only watched Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, but didn't read the comics. And if he did read comics, he only read comics based on Justice League or Justice League Unlimited, or just books that feature John Stewart. And to him, that was the Green Lantern. But all of us that read comics before that series, and all of us who are hardcores, we know that John Stewart is like what? The third Green Lantern? You had Alan Scott, Hal Jordan, and then you had him. Then you had Kyle, right? And somewhere in between Kyle and John, or maybe in between Hal and John, you had Guy Gardner. We had this argument, and he's telling me I'm not giving him facts. These are facts. The shit is in print. So like what I end my whole thing was come correct or don't come at all. I'm using facts. You need to come at me with facts. And once you do that and you accept that these facts exist, then we can continue to have this conversation, and then we can figure out how to fix things, or, you know, kind of tip the scales more in our favor. I think that's a fair way to do it instead of the usual YouTube thugging that people like to do. So anyway, get at me in the comments. This is serious. This is one of those things that I'm passionate about because it's kind of the reason why I even started illustrating for comics. So hit me up and let me know what you think, all right? I'm out.